The November 9th, 2011 Communications Commission meeting. Why don't we read the minutes of the September 14th, 2011 meeting? Since October was canceled due to no quorum, if there are any corrections or additions, please review it and let me know.
I move approval.
Is there a second? Second. Since there's been a move, approved, do we have a vote? Please say aye or nay.
All in favor? Aye.
Great.
Aye.
And it passes. All righty. We have seconded by Lauren. Correct. Yes. All right. All right. There are no guests today for conversation, so we have unfinished business to discuss.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Before we approve the agenda, as noted, I'd like to make a motion to add an action item to the agenda to recommend, to accept and recommend to the Board of Trustees that Linda Solano be added to our commission as the liaison from the schools.
Well, we were going to talk about that.
That's going to become a subject
Yes,
that's on the discussion.
That's in the chairman's report.
Very good.
Okay.
I withdraw.
All right, withdraw that. Thank you. Okay. Unfinished business. Establish a schedule for upcoming meetings. Okay. How does this work? How is this working for everybody? Wednesdays at 6.
I think Wednesdays is good, but I think it's too often, unless we have some real subjects to cover.
Okay, so you're talking.
I'd say quarterly, unless we do something differently.
Okay, suggestion for you. Pam.
My timetable has changed somewhat because I now have. Because I now have the third Wednesday opens up now because we're meeting in the afternoon. The Overture Society. So I'm free. Wednesdays is good except the first Wednesday. And I'm just wondering if it could be later than 6, if it could be 7, or are we, because doesn't the Festival Commission, Island Fest Commission meet after we do at 7:30?
On the second Wednesday it does, but I don't think the third Wednesday, but I'm not sure. But I'm pretty
think
sure
they are the second.
Yeah, but if we went to the third Wednesday, we'd have to check that schedule to see what's available. And unfortunately, Ted is not here tonight. He's on vacation. So
Is 6 good for everybody else? Because I can make 6, but I just wondered if maybe we could move it to 7.
7's okay.
I'd prefer it. I would prefer it at 7 as well. I think for all of us that work, it's a little bit of a push to make it at 6 o'clock. So 7.
Is the preferred time. But we know that we can't do it on the second. So I will check and see if we can do it on the third Wednesday at 7. And I'll let everybody know that. Bear with me as I text minutes.
Are we going to meet in December?
That was going to be my next comment.
That would be the 21st. Kind of pushing Christmas.
Would everybody be agreeable to not have a meeting in December because of the holiday and then start hard at it in January? And we still could discuss anything we want via email, as we have been doing.
Sure.
Do I have, somebody like to make a motion on that for the not having a December meeting?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. Forego the December meeting.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
That's fine.
I thought we were going to have discussion first, but that's
We can discuss, absolutely.
Well, we've already had the vote, but
Okay,
it's okay.
all right. December, and then we get back to our regular schedule in January.
Now, we already moved it, if I might, Madam Chair, have we already then made a decision to shift our meeting time from 6 to 7 o'clock?
No, yes, that we did do. That we did talk about.
I really don't think that requires a vote, but I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear.
And I said, it would be 7 if we could go to the third Wednesday, if it is available, and I will check on that. So I'll get back to everybody, because we can't make a decision since Ted isn't here to tell us what other meetings are going on. He would know the meeting schedule better than I, but I will follow up on that. I know he's only in one day this week.
I don't know if I'm following protocol now, but did you have a comment on the December meeting that?
Well, the only comment, and it's already been voted upon, but the comment I would have had is I would have liked to see what transpired during this meeting, and I think it might be better for us to stick to regular schedule and then descend, maybe determine at the end of a meeting if nothing has come up that's pressing that requires action or immediate attention, to make the decision at that time whether or not to dispense with the next monthly meeting.
I would agree with you for every month but December, only for the fact that if it is the 21st, that would probably be very difficult for people. Otherwise, I would agree with you.
That's fine. If you would just note, just for consideration in the future.
Absolutely. And I'll put that in the minutes.
Thank you.
Bear with me while I type this. All right. Vacancies on the Communication Commission. I've been checking. There are no current applications on file. And I will go through that in more depth in the chairman's report coming up in item 5D. But right now, if you know anybody, we did put in an article on your camera, and we've been asking people if they're interested. This is a great organization. We do a lot of good things. And we'd like some more participation from the people in the community.
What do the bylaws say? How many people are on this board, this commission?
Seven, is it not?
What do we have, 5 now? There's 2 liaisons?
There's the
We have
board
a
liaison
vacancy.
and the liaison from the schools.
Are they voting members of the commission?
They are.
I see. And Ted is a member or no?
He
It's
is,
not a voting member.
he is not a
So we
voting.
have 6. There's one vacancy?
There's,
There's 2 vacancies, the school liaison and one.
Got it. I'm with you. Thank you.
Is there something you want to address, Pam?
Oh, well, I was going to do this in my liaison report for the township, but, okay. Kathy wrote a column in the Eagle Camera, just kind of updating people on what the Communications Commission was all about. And I'm planning to follow that up with a column that I do, the Island Eye, and kind of reinforce that we would search for a member of the commission from the public for input. And I thought I would include a little background on Kathy, because she, I believe, is the only woman commission chair in the township. So I think we have kind of a unique commission, and wouldn't the public out there, somebody out there, be interested in being part of this body? And so anyway, that's going to be my next column next week. So I'm going to get a few notes. Kathy had a little of her background in her column that appeared in the last Eagle Camera, but I thought I'd make it a little bit more personal and say we're searching for one more member of our commission. So hopefully by the new year, somebody will step forward.
Oh, my button? Oh, sorry, thank you. I'm using the button.
If it's lit up, I think you're muted.
If it's lit up, it's me. Okay, then it's fine. Okay, Pam, do you have anything more about your report?
Brian Loftus, our supervisor, wanted an item on the agenda, which is coming up. But he would like us to look at a group, it's a committee, no, it's a, what is it? It's a, what's it called?
Civics Plus.
Civics Plus. And, but that'll be discussed in the future, a little later on. And then I came across, I'm cleaning out old files, and I found that the Cable Commission used to do a newsletter, and this is volume 1, number 1. And I don't know whether this is something we should follow up on and do something like this. I don't know how they distributed it, whether they mailed it to the mailed it out to the whole community, but it mentioned your Cable Commission and Township in Action and you and your cable and fire and police. So I thought maybe in the future I can pass this around and you can decide whether we want to stay in touch with the community via a newsletter or something on our website. So if they click on Communications Commission, they'll find out what's going on a timely basis. And also in the Michigan Township Association magazine, they had a whole page in September on using the township website as an economic development tool. And this sounds like something we've talked about in the past. Do we want to sell the township and what a great place this would be to locate a business or establish a home? And I didn't bring copies, but I thought in January we could talk about this. Is this a direction we want to go in or not? And it spells out how you do put on the website using it as an economic development tool. And I'm thinking our airport commission probably would be interested in getting good word out. I don't know how they do it now, whether they have their own website. But I just bring this up for your future consideration that maybe we should take a serious look at what they're suggesting.
Pam, are you able to scan those and email that to us?
Mhm.
That'd be great.
Okay.
May I ask a question, Madam Chair? What's the date on that newsletter, Pam?
September 2011.
On the newsletter?
Oh, the newsletter.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, sorry. From the Cable Commission, the date is, there must be a date. They don't have that on their heading. You see it? It's in the early days, which I think goes back to about 96, 95.
Yeah, this is fairly old. 92, 93 school year.
Oh, 92, 93 school year.
Okay. Well, the only reason I bring it into question is that if we were going to mail it, of course, it'd have to be a budgeted item. And,
Right.
and I think that, although I think newsletters can still be very, very effective, I think the technology has changed so very, very drastically in the last 20 years. That has got to be taken into consideration. And I also think that if we checked into it, we would find that the newsletter for the township, I believe, is falls within the scope of and is specifically called out by as being the responsibility of the clerk's office, I believe. If they're publishing anything on, that would be township-based information, I think that would lie with the clerk. So if we were going to publish one, certainly it would have to go through the clerk's office, I think, for approval as well.
That you wonder, like, how much of the information would be redundant to what's already out there on the website and other avenues. 'Cause that was, 92. That was still early phases of good web development, web communication.
Well, it's something to think about.
Right.
And it was delightful that you found it.
Yeah, that's neat.
Delightful.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful,
I
too.
don't
I'd
know
like
whether
to
it's
see
a
it.
one and only copy or
You have to put it in the archives.
one and only issue. But anyway, it's worth
Yeah.
thinking about in the future. And that's all I have.
Okay. The cable department supervisor is not here tonight to give a report, but I can give a little bit of report in the chairman's report. Also, there is no school board liaison currently. In my role as chairman, I have called the school and talked to Sharon, the executive assistant to Bill Leist, and there seems to be a little bit of a conflict with Mrs. Solomon's Solano's schedule. She has meetings on Tuesdays, and because of the Tuesday meetings, it would be a push for her to do Wednesday, but they were going to get back to me. Now that we have a third Wednesday as opposed to a second Wednesday, that might change, and I'll give her an update. I have not heard back from them. I did email her with our agenda, and I did call today to ask if she would be in attendance, and I heard nothing. So I'm hoping that we get some feedback. They might be busy, things go on. But I'm going to keep pursuing this until I get a definite answer one way or the other if the school wants to participate. I know they did in the past. I'm hoping they will continue to participate with us. I think it's very important to get their point of view since they have a cable station also, and we have such a good rapport with them. As Pam mentioned, there was an article in the old camera. I'm hoping that this will energize someone to come forward. And I think it's kind of neat that we were the first group to reach out to the community via the EO camera, because it's a great tool. It's a wonderful paper, and everyone reads it. I also attended on Monday a thing called Chopped, and it was put on in conjunction with Riverview and Grove Seal GITV, and it was terrific. It was at the Riverview High School, and Ted was there with his crew, and they were basically doing a TV show about culinary skills with local chefs, and it was delightful. There were over 110 people, and it will be playing on Riverview and on GITV once it's edited. And it was basically a fundraiser for the Riverview Chefs Club, and it was great. And it was nice to see that we are tandeming with other communities and participating. And who knows who else might pick up this little video they're doing for us. It was terrific. It was just a great evening for $7. It was terrific. And I was glad to see GITV was there. Lastly, I noticed something today, since we've been talking about Facebook and Twitter and all that, about Google Plus. And I think that's something we might want to look into also, because they have some options that are not available in Facebook. And I guess every year there'll be something, or every month there'll be a new group coming out with a new social networking. But it seemed very interesting, and I thought we could discuss it if we're interested in Grove Seal going on to that. Well, so far they've got 40 million participants. And it's a different way of grouping people. They say it's a little bit more efficient. So it's something that I just heard about it today, and I thought I'd mention it at this meeting, because you guys were tech-oriented. And that is the end of my report.
Well, if I could ask, this CHOPS, this is the first time I heard anything about this. Now, apparently GITV was doing this for Riverview, doing the recording?
No, it was a compilation of their cable group and our cable people. It was a joint venture.
It was a joint venture.
And remember, we've talked about this at a few meetings in the past, how we ought to get involved with other communities, and they would see our information, we would see theirs, and have expanded on that.
And you know what, I don't mind doing that at all. I think it's an excellent idea to reach out and again cultivate those relationships. I think what bothers me is that the Commission tends to become aware of these things, and we're told in one meeting that we don't have any money left and that all of our funds are already expended, which I think we were told several months ago. And we were never even made aware that this was on the table for consideration. It just was done. And yet we're responsible for the budget and to ensure that those dollars are spent wisely. I think it brings up a broader issue that projects like this should come in front of the Commission, and the Commission should be able to comment and determine whether or not that's the best expense of our limited funds, rather than just finding out as an afterthought that it's been done.
If I'm not mistaken, I think he mentioned it. We did not have a meeting last month, but we did have discussion. Since there wasn't a quorum, there was a little discussion, and I think he did mention it that time. And I know it was also mentioned in the newspaper, too.
Okay, but mentioning it is not...
Well, we couldn't vote. There was no meeting.
Well, these are the kinds of things, though, that continue, I think, have been done on a fairly consistent basis. They happen. And these things need to come before the Commission for the Commission's consideration. I mean, if one of the things that we're supposed to do is make sure that our dollars are, and that those budget monies are equitably spent amongst the broad community, then these are the types of things that we need to have input on, and we need to have be able to audit and make some determination upon.
Well, I think if I may, something that might help us as a commission is knowing exactly what the annual schedule is as far as recording and taping, because it seems like there's a lot of cyclical items and then any add-ons. I think it's great that we're working in conjunction with other communities. I think it makes sense. If we can consolidate dollars and efforts and services, that makes all the sense in the world, especially these days. But I would agree that outside of me just reading it, a little blurb about it, I forget if it was on Facebook or if it was in the EO camera, but again, it's after the fact, and if we're made aware of it ahead of time, we can maybe garner some support and put some more messaging behind it or whatever it may be, but I think it makes sense for us to be a little bit more aware of what's going on as far as the external affairs of what we're doing with other communities.
We can have a meeting.
How does the budget process work? The budget's approved, and then Ted has control of the line item budget. If he stays within that line item budget, he's okay.
Pretty much. My understanding. Would you like to take this one, Pam?
Yeah, well, has everybody seen the budget? Okay. And this, I knew about it because Ted mentioned it at the last board meeting that they were having this collaboration with Riverview, and it was something that the township is going to cite all these regional cooperations because that's good for some points, making the points with the state government, which is wanting communities to do more regional activities together. So Ted told me at the last board meeting on my way out that this was an action between the two cable, Riverview and Grosse Hill, and I knew it was coming up, but I agree that maybe an email to the commission I don't know if from Ted or from Kathy, but just to say that this was coming up and maybe somebody else from the commission would like to be there to see what the process was all about. But I'm sure Ted keeps his budget expenses within the budget because he'll get called on the carpet if he doesn't.
I mean, I think it's a different issue, though. I think that
It is a different issue. No, you go ahead. I'd rather hear your input.
I think the issue is what I was, so that my first question was answered. It's an overall budget of $107,000 I have in front of me.
Yeah, right here.
Okay, and there's several line items on here. I think the question is, how much leeway, control or lack of control is there within those line items? And the particular event that happened the other day, probably can't answer about Ted, or where did it fall? So the question is, how's the budget managed, I guess?
I would think it would have, since he's salaried, that's a non-issue. He did work it, and then they, to my knowledge, there was at least one helper. So that would go against the salaries for the cable techs, I would imagine. I don't think they have much overtime. Yes, they have none. So it's basically an hourly rate for probably 4 or 5 hours for a tech. And then the editing and whatever, whoever does that, whether it be Ted or someone else. There might be a collaboration between Ted and the GI and the Cable Commission in Riverview. So it'd be nominal at best.
So when you look at it, the largest item on here is personnel.
As always.
Between salaries and benefits.
But they don't
I
get,
guess you could go a step further and say who controls the largest line item, which is their time, and how do they best use it, how do they use it, period.
That's correct.
the only line item, because salaries, the man is on salary, so he doesn't get additional compensation. That's a sunk cost, whether he works 40 hours or 60 hours. It's a sunk cost. Then you've got your overtime, which is zero for the year. FICA health insurance, that's all locked in with the one employee. The only variable would be the additional support, which would be a tech. They don't pay them insurance, they don't pay them retirement, vision, dental. That's only for the employee. So those are all standardized. The only thing that would be a variable is your tech for 5 hours or 4 hours or whatever it is. So that's the variable at a certain cost per hour.
So if the budget's basically finite and it hasn't really necessarily grown year over year,
No, it's gone
and if
down.
we've got a lot of the same cyclical events that are covered and maybe one or two little offshoots here and there, then at some point that money runs out, and where is that determination to make room for an event like this? And again, I want to reiterate, I think it's a great idea. What I think is just a little disturbing or annoying is the fact that, again, we find out after the fact. I mean, we're all part of the cable commissions here, and 3 of us didn't really have any knowledge of this until after the event. It would be nice to have communication from Ted to us on a more consistent basis saying, these are the events I'm working on this month. I'll let you know if there's any other things, just so that we can also maybe show up and show our support. That's always, a good thing to be involved with, too.
And I also take the blame for that. I just assumed everyone knew, and I shouldn't have. I should have sent out an email.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily read the EOCAM law every issue, or all the other things that maybe some of you, other individuals may do on a fairly consistent basis. So,
And Grosso Yacht Club had their chef in it, so I had a little bit of knowledge on that side too.
Yeah.
But yes, and so in the future, I think that's a very excellent suggestion, and we'll all be much more keenly aware that everybody should be aware, so they can make a decision if they want to be involved.
right.
And
Well, frankly, I'd like to go beyond that and say it's whether it should be done at a certain point. I think we should have discussion on some of these things as to whether they should be done to begin with and whether that's the expenditure of the commission's money. Now, I think I would have agreed on this. But I think there are also, the challenge for us is taking this finite budget, which is really reflected in Ted's salary. I mean, this is the value. It's Ted's time and hours to the largest degree. It probably accounts for 70% of the budget, maybe a little bit more than 70% of the budget. And we have to make sure that his time is expended in the most productive fashion for our residents. And the broad community. And we have a lot of different segments to get to within that community. And I'm not sure that we're doing that. And I think it's the responsibility of this commission to take some ownership for that and making that assessment.
Is there some sort of a criteria that when requests come in to videotape events like this, that TED actually checks off, this meets this, it's a township event, it's a township organization. What are his parameters for looking and accepting the work? Is there any documentation in regards to that? Or is it just, okay, sounds like a good idea? I don't necessarily want to get into the programming business of the channel. I think, while yes, there are a ton of segments out there, I don't necessarily want to hear every, person or applicant or request that comes through. I don't necessarily think that that's what we're here for. I think it's a good idea to keep a tab on that, and if it starts, I think getting a monthly report of what's going to be coming up and what projects he's working on makes perfect sense. But I think more importantly are creating standards for not only what's broadcast, but also what's published on our website and things along those lines. And while that's a different discussion, it kind of, naturally could potentially move in that direction if we so chose.
One thing, when you talk about the dollars, again, I'm not going to run numbers, especially around publicly, but anything under $100, I don't think that would be something we would want to be involved in. I mean, you've got to look at the dollars, because sometimes some of the things he does, I'm sure, are so insignificant financially to his budget, it just wouldn't be of any value for our time. If you'd like to set parameters, you'd have to first know what the listing of his programs are going to be, what kind of money is applied against it. Then you could pick and choose what you would be of most interest to seeing. As Lauren said, she doesn't want to get into programming. I don't think anybody wants to get into a $50 program to analyze if it's value or not. They've been doing this a long time. If they feel it's worth, but for $50, it's not going to break the bank.
If I could respond, just because
Sure.
I would certainly agree to that, or with that. I think our problem is that we're completely at the opposite end of the spectrum, where it doesn't matter whether it's $50 or whether it's $50,000.
We don't know.
We really don't have. There's no formal process for considering the value and assessing whether or not it's affordable within our budget for any of these projects. And so if it's a $50 item, if it's a $100 item, if it's a couple $100, I mean, if it's 4 hours of programming time, and I suppose we'd have to get down to what is, Ted's programming time, what is his time worth, then, no, absolutely not. But we're not close to that.
You like a process.
We're on the other side of the galaxy as far as that level of accountability is concerned.
I think in the past we've let Ted kind of set the guidelines, which ones he turns down because he doesn't feel it fits into a community event. But I just recently asked him if he could film the Grosse Ile Music House Gala, which is celebrating their 80th anniversary, and I think that's an important event. But I think Ted should inform the commission, maybe ask us for our opinion if he's got 2 or 3 requests to film, and let us know if we want to set a guideline ourselves or just leave it up to him as we have in the past. And I think he is trying to stick within a budget, that there are some requests that come in that he just doesn't honor. But one like this, I think, would be worth having a film, maybe just one film person there. We did that when we had an over-the-top after-dinner talk at Perdino's, and he sent Ursula O'Connor over with a camera, and it captured nature photos from Grosse Ile. And I think that would be worthwhile viewing on channel GITV. But so far, we've kind of let Ted set the guidelines, what he turns down and what he says that he can send a photo crew.
Yes, I know that's always been the case, but I would like to see the commission, frankly, become more involved in that, and possibly developing relationships with other commissions that we're supposed to be supportive of within the township, and other groups, whether it's the schools, whether it's I think we should have a process if some of the nonprofits want to come to us, and I know we've got to be careful about that, but we want to be supportive of community organizations. We have a very successful high school football team, and I know that we recorded one of their games, and I was very happy to see that we recorded one of the girls' volleyball games finally, but up until they won, we gave almost no attention to the girls' golf team who just won the state championship, and the sailing team. And there's so many groups like that that deserve some attention, deserve a moment in the sun, and it would probably help them and in support of their organizations if we had a formal process for reaching out to them, whether it's developing each one of us as liaisons to these groups or meeting with them on a consistent basis, so that we know, so that it's not just relying on Ted, so that we know how we can support these other groups within the township government and also on the island. I know that Tim Rooney is, I've got to believe we can do more to help that man who works just his tail off at the rec department.
Well, one thing I do know, when Ted has questions on his guideline, he reports to Dale Ream, and the decision will be made at that point. Another item, since we meet once a month or once every month, I don't know how often people say, hey, could you come to Perdino's and review this lovely all the pictures that we're having of Grosse Ile and this lovely program. And sometimes you don't have time to have a meeting about it. So I mean, I agree with you in theory. It's a great theory that we would be involved in every single aspect if we had the time and desire. But it's a great idea. I don't know if it's really functional and practical. I think part of it is, but not every item. But as you said before, we're a long way from every item. So it's something to look into, but there is a process that if he has any question, he does go to the township manager, and then the decision is made.
But it's our responsibility.
Well, Ted reports to the township manager, not to us.
No, but I mean the budget ultimately is our responsibility. We recommend it, we approve it, or the board approves it based on our recommendation, and the board expects us to take some level of responsibility for it.
Wouldn't that be the primary aspect of our responsibility, starting with the budget and then going from there? But isn't that step number one? Isn't it our responsibility to look at that budget and make sure that
It is.
the citizens are getting the most value for those dollars?
Ideally, yes. And I've done a lot of budgets, and probably we don't know all the components. We don't sit in the meetings. We don't have the knowledge. unless we were going to start getting so proactive that we come to the budget meetings at the municipality.
I don't think it's even that.
That's where you're going.
I think
No,
this
it's really not.
I think this is as simple as Ted creating a simple spreadsheet, entering in all the requests that have been put forward, his estimation of time, the estimation of the expenses, whether or not he's going to be going forward with these, and then on a monthly basis, that's sent to us on the first of the month for the next 30 days of events that he's going to be covering. I think it's as simple as that. If there's any questions or concerns, then we can communicate via email or phone calls, or if we need a special meeting because something is a red flag, then we call a special meeting. But I don't think it's us attending a bunch of budget meetings and getting over intricately involved. I think it's a matter of really establishing some process that Ted should follow, because if we're ultimately responsible for these funds, it comes back to us. And I think we can take a more proactive stance by becoming more involved in the process, not necessarily realizing that there's accountability there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, Kathy, that you're probably overstating. I mean, we don't have to get into the minutia of it, but I think it goes back to what you said about the $50, $100. I think that's an excellent start, Lauren's suggestion, that we get some kind of a spreadsheet with projected costs, and that becomes part of the process of consideration. And so that we can manage the budget and manage where those funds are going.
And I personally don't want to say yes or no to them, but if there's things that stick out that is a red flag, or things that are maybe expenses that may take away from other more pressing issues or items that are relevant at the time, then those are the things that we should maybe collectively, have some communication about. But other than that, I mean, I personally don't want to get into, like I said, the programming business, as long as everything still continues to be Grove Zeal and, harmoniously working with some of the other surrounding municipalities. It makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, and I would agree. That's why we have to.
And what I was thinking is step one is the budget. What do you do with those dollars, which is primarily personnel expense? And I think we're on the right track, because we've been talking about doing a survey and really find out what the community wants us to do with those dollars. So I really do think we have to find out. It's not it's not even a dollar. What do they really want to see from the commission? And then we have a kind of a guiding process and a way to monitor how the dollars are being spent and make sure they're funneled into the right areas. Because do we really know what the community wants from this commission? It sounds like we haven't asked them in a long, long time.
Right. I know. It sounds as though, Pam, you're very involved with a lot of these organizations, and a lot of the ideas and programming are probably recommended by you. So, if we really take a look at what is it that the community wants, do they want to see more of the high school athletics? Mm-hmm. Do they want to see more of the nonprofit organizations? Do they want to see more of the conservancy efforts that are going on? These are the types of things that we really need to ask, and that puts us to task, where then we need to really reformulate where our dollars are being spent.
If I might, too, just to go further on that point, we tend to get into larger productions, 15 minutes, half an hour or beyond, our productions. I mean, some of them are fairly large in scale. I mean, if you look at the Island Fest, and if you look at the veteran scale and whatnot, I'm not sure that we have to engage in projects of that length or that scope to still be responsive to our community. I think whether it's 2 minutes to 5 minutes, it could be somebody just with a handheld camera. And we would still be probably more real-time in our information flow to the community, and responsive to a much broader portion of the community.
You can do a lot with flip video these days.
I'm so sorry?
Flip video these days, the little teeny tiny handheld consumer-driven technology that you don't necessarily need to set up a 4-camera shoot at Island Fest, where you just send a man out on the street, and maybe you have somebody asking questions of people, making it a little bit more interactive. I mean, I don't necessarily know what the statistics are, but how many people are actually at Island Fest versus go home and I want to see it on TV?
That's a good point. Look at all the information that gets on the internet. How does it get there? It doesn't get there via camera crew anymore.
Right. Right.
Well, in reading our charges, we're supposed to be encouraging equitable access to publicly owned communication media by appropriate institutions, groups, and individuals. And we're following that if Ted is giving coverage to some community events. But I really embrace what you said, is to talk to Ted, and I'll volunteer to talk to Ted about doing a report, maybe just by email, every month, which will say, these are proposed programs for your approval or comment. And then we would have a heads up what's coming up, and if we see something that maybe should be stopped or further encouraged, then we've got the option of following up, but at least we're informed. And I think that should be part of Ted's job description, is keeping us up to date with what he's filming out there as we're talking about appropriate individuals, groups, and institutions within the community. But I think just keeping us up to date is an excellent idea, and I would volunteer, if that's okay with the commission,
That'd be great.
to talk to Ted about doing a regular update.
Great.
Is that something I should...
Well, frankly, I can make that motion under new business. And we can actually take a vote on it to make it as a recommendation. If you'd like to pursue it, you can, certainly.
Why don't we do that then?
I think we need a motion on the budget, so take a motion that leads to further exploration and our activity.
The budget's done for the year, though. I mean, you're talking about...
A budget process for this commission. I mean...
In projecting costs, assessing costs, and it coming...
Or maybe just a further breakdown to what those dollars that actually exist for him to spend. Is that what you're thinking? Because, most of it's set, so if he's got $30-some thousand dollars.
Set. There's a piece missing here. The piece is there's not a control process. I mean, no municipality, no company, even no households have a budget and then don't look at it periodically
Right.
and review it and make sure it's being spent in the way that was first intended when you laid it out. And I think ours is laid out in April or something.
Yeah. So,
April 1st is the...
So I'm going to say one more thing, then I know you want to say something. But I think what we've been talking about is an ongoing process. So I'll leave it at that. What were you going to say?
I was maybe just, I'm sure that there's a report that Ted could generate based on a monthly, or however often we decide to meet, even though we've changed our hour to 6 to 7, we still haven't determined how often as far as frequency. But, that would be also a nice thing to have, is just a budget update every single time we're in here.
I've got it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, and I can forward it to you tonight.
So if we have a budget...
Do you get those monthly then?
If I ask for them, I get them.
Okay. Okay, great. So you can get those monthly then and
Absolutely.
share. Okay.
Maybe forward it to everybody. I got it
Great.
here. And it's so... The budget is small to begin with.
Right.
The variable, as far as the programs, it's a small piece. I look at the whole picture and I think the most of it is the employee, and that's a sunk cost. You're going to pay for him no matter what. Whether
Right,
it's
we get
40,
that,
60, yeah. So the little bit that we have flexibility on, depending on how it's been, he would have to then cost every job out, depending on what the parameters would be if he wanted under 1,000 or over that. I mean, there's a lot of administrative work involved in doing that. Now, I don't know what he does, or if he does it. I think he probably does it in his head, because he's always watching his budget. I know that. So, but I can forward this information on, and we can keep it on a monthly basis so we know exactly where we stand. No problem.
I think that puts us more in charge and overseeing the cable department.
Who receives that now?
We're going to receive it. I've got it.
Okay, you get it on a monthly basis?
If I ask for it, I get it.
Okay, let's, I would make the motion that move that we formally request that and that be distributed amongst our commission members on a monthly basis in advance of the forthcoming meeting.
Second.
Are we voting on that right now, or are we?
Discussion.
Okay.
Well, the chair's got to,
Make the motion.
Finish
Right.
Let's get the motion spelled out. Exactly what do you want the motion to say?
The commission will receive a-
that we receive a monthly budget update in advance of forthcoming meetings for consideration and discussion.
Yeah, it should be received by us before the meeting, so that we
Yes.
have time to review and bring questions.
Yes. Ideally about a week prior, but I mean, that doesn't have to be laid out in the motion.
Well, I think we have to do it when we get it.
Mhm.
We don't have control when they do their budget. So we'll see the timing of it. We might not, if we meet on the third week, I would think it would be done by then. But sometimes it's not. It depends on how, but I will contact them and keep you guys aware of where we stand.
Okay, well, we have the motion on the floor.
Okay. You see the monthly budget standing and forward within a week before the meeting. Is that correct? To review and digest. Sure that right. Commission will receive a monthly budget standing forward and use the monthly budget standing within a week before the meeting. Okay. And we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Opposed? Okay, motion passed. All right. New business. We talked about a proposed Facebook tutorial on GITV. This was a discussion item since we did not have a meeting. What does everyone think of that for the community?
I think in the meeting that you're referring to in September, it was mentioned. I mentioned that there's plenty of tutorials already out there in existence. I don't necessarily think that this is something that we need to recreate the wheel on. You can Google it. You can go to Facebook. There's just a number, and YouTube has got plenty of them out there as far as how to use Facebook, set up accounts, things along those lines. I think that we would really, it wouldn't make any sense for us to go ahead and do that again.
Would you think it'd be good to have links so that the community could find their way? Because that's the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would make sense.
I have a question. Aren't there so many forms of social media now that are we pinpointing one?
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, realistically, that's the thing. There really are quite a few. The only reason why I think Facebook would be relevant is because that's really the only one that Groseal's involved with at township level. But going back to that is we don't necessarily control that, have access to it, and it's not necessarily interactive. So although pointing people there, they can't leave comments. There is no two-way conversation going on. It's not transparent. So, there's an issue with teaching somebody to go to something that they're not going to be able to express their opinions or get information.
So you don't think it's a valid...
That was part of a greater conversation because it's a matter of, Facebook is a great resource. It's free. It's cheap. Anybody can add to it. It's something that I had recommended that we do, but it was mentioned that we have no control over it and the controls are locked down so that people cannot post comments and whatnot. So it's not necessarily something, unless we went off and did our own, which doesn't necessarily make any sense either. When you start having too many Facebook pages, your message is being diluted, and then you don't have representation from each group. Anybody else in the conversation?
Well, I would agree with that. I think the intent is good, and if the intent is to try to educate the community, I think that's good, but I think as Lauren said, and Bob said, what do we put links out there? Maybe not specified links, but maybe just give somebody parameters for a Boolean search that they can pop into Google. They can find plenty of videos on Facebook that will teach people and maybe alleviate some of the resistance or fear. It's the easiest thing in the world to get into, and again, a great tool.
Yeah.
Is that really what you want to do? Is your concern? I think it's a valid one. Is to arm our public to engage in other forms of social media.
Are you speaking to me?
No, I was posing it to Kathy.
Okay, sorry.
Because I think this was...
It was brought up to me, and I, quite honestly, I'm looking at the demographics of our community, and we have a large percentage of our community that's over 40. Mm-hmm. They don't feel comfortable with Facebook. They don't feel comfortable with Twitter. They're embarrassed in some ways to ask for help. They don't want to ask their grandchildren. They don't know anybody who knows how to use it, and there becomes, whether it be resentment or just they turn their back on something like that. And I thought if we could reach out to this very important demographic and make them feel safe and comfortable in their own home to learn, and we give them this tool, I think it would benefit the community, and it would be good for GITV. Again, a lot is, and I hear what you're saying, like, oh, it's no big deal, it's so easy. Last time we were here, we had one gentleman who said 2 clicks was too much. It was too hard to get to our Granicus by 2 clicks. And if that was too hard for him, just think how these people must feel about Facebook. You've got to step back into their shoes, I think, is what I'm saying.
When you look at 2 clicks, when you look at our website, the problem is we've got layers and layers of pages to go through to get where you want to be. When you go to Facebook, while it may be challenging for a non-computer savvy individual to get involved in that particular medium, not having any exposure to it, let alone if they have any computer skills, it's whether here nor there. I don't think that those are two applicable.
I think it's just the attitude. And I think it's
the
the
biggest
attitude of
users-
people over 40 or maybe even over 60.
Well, this may surprise you, but I believe that the largest user group for Facebook is 35 plus.
If I could comment, Facebook is great, actually. I mean, it's got site analytics as part of it, and I've got a number of them up, and my largest demographic is in this 35 to 45, and then the 45 to 55 is second, and it's only after that. Actually, it's after you hit the 60. You get a significant drop off when you hit early mid 60s, and you would expect that it would be very, very popular under 25, and it's not. We have a significant drop off under 25, but maybe the content. But
I was going to say, what's the content?
it's this happens to be this one happens to be Opportunity Grow Seal, which is all Grow Seal. I mean, it's all Grow Seal based, and it's about 60% female. And largely within those age ranges. I think one of the other things in reading about Facebook, though, that will draw in, and maybe make it more important for those groups beyond 55 to participate, is that their families are participating. So you've got their kids, you've got their children. This becomes almost a primary method of communication, and it can be visual because Skype or a form of Skype is part of Facebook. So you can actually sit there and hold a live conversation over on Facebook with somebody that is on the other side of the world. Actually, we did it with our neighbors, the Randys, in India. about 2 weeks ago. So if anybody's listening and you've got grandchildren and you want to get to them, I certainly heartily endorse learning how to use Facebook, because it's a great tool and they're probably using it.
Well, perhaps we can help them a little bit with some links.
But with links and identifying videos, yeah, absolutely.
Are we?
I have a question. If they go to our website, can they click on Communications Commission? And there, could we say, want to join us on Facebook, or you want to learn how to use Facebook, then go to, and then you mentioned it's out there. But I'm one of those that I'm on Facebook, but I have no idea how you really use it, except every once in a while I'll have a message from somebody. But I have friends that use that as daily communication between friends, and I'm not that comfortable with it. And I'm just wondering, can we make it a little easier for old folks like me to want to flow a little more easily into Facebook rather than having this big question mark? So I'm just wondering, on GITV or on our website, can we make it easy for a person who's hesitant to use it to know how to use it? Is there a link that we could mention?
Well, there are dozens and dozens, if not thousands, of different approaches. From, you could have a 12-year-old trying to teach a tutorial on Facebook. You could have somebody who's, older. You could have somebody sitting at their computer. You could have somebody at the chalkboard. There's a number of different tutorials out there. It's just a matter of the individual finding the one that's right for them. So directing them to a specific link. You could. YouTube has got great demonstrations on there. Facebook themselves is has a little tutorial. So I think it's a matter of, it's up to the user. It really is up to the end user to find the mechanism that's right for them. I don't think that we can say this one is the appropriate one for you to use. We can provide a link to Facebook. We can provide a link to our Facebook page.
Why can't we provide a link to some Facebook-based sponsored tutorials, something that they put out? They have to have some things that they put out, because I think Pam is the perfect example of the consumer that we aren't helping. And I know it seems so easy to somebody who works with it daily and monitors it and writes code. But there are a lot of people here, and as you said, we have to reach all of our constituencies. They all have to be comfortable. And if we can offer them something that is generic, because you keep saying their needs, they have to find. They don't even turn the computer on because they're so overwhelmed, a lot of the people. They really are. If you ever go to the library and see these people asking for help, it's so sad.
Right. My father was not a good computer user by any means, but I don't necessarily. How are we going to handhold every island resident to make them each individually feel comfortable about getting on a computer, let alone using Facebook?
Well, we have to do something. We have to make an effort, I think. I'm not saying we can achieve a goal, but that is a goal to try for. We want the people to feel this is something that's theirs. GITV is theirs. Our Facebook is theirs. We want to communicate with them. We want to make it able that they will try with the tools. There's some tools that and if we offer them a couple tools, they might branch out. They might say, oh, that's not what I want this. And it might just give them the courage. You don't know what will tip the scale for somebody. That's my point. I just want to see that our community has something to offer to them that maybe it'll help them.
Can I volunteer? I'll look into something. I think I agree. I agree with Lauren that we've got to put limitations on it, and we can't be the one to choose a single point of contact or channel, but maybe we can find some way simply
Yeah.
And would you agree that, for instance, I'll give you for instance, I could, if we found the perfect video that was available, it could be that, and we point them to it, we link them to it. This presumes now that that whoever that user is up to date on their software and has the operating software necessary to accept that video stream.
As opposed
Which
to
is,
95.
which,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
other hiccups.
which I've heard from Greg Kish and several others. We have some antiquated systems, a whole bunch of antiquated systems on the island. So I think there's limits to what we can do.
But we can try.
But we can try. I'll see what I can do. I'll volunteer to try
Great.
to do that.
Good.
And anything else? Or are we on to the next issue? Or Madam Chairman? Madam Murphy? Madam Frucci? I'll ask the ladies.
We also, we were talking last time at our meeting that a hands-on technology session for island residents, which would be rather interesting.
What is that? I'm not sure what that is.
Last time, the representative from the school system mentioned that you could have a hands-on technology session for island residents to teach them, this is a computer, this is what you do, and we're, and again, there are people who will not turn them on. I think that was something that she would have championed if she been here, and perhaps she will if she does come here, because it seemed like quite a elaborate idea for technology to get. She said that she could write a grant and perhaps get some monies for laptops that we could have, an area that once a month or whatever time and teach them how to use Word or whatever the program would be. And she really wanted to champion that in her discussion. We'll see if that can transpire. It seems very, it's a big challenge, but it'd be great for our community to have something like that, because they do have it at the libraries. Unfortunately, we don't have a library, because they do teach people a little bit when they go to the library. So she discussed it at length. It was a nice idea.
Could I make a suggestion? I don't think, if we're not sure how we even have our hands around our own budget, around our budget, I'm not sure that we could expense more monies on something like that once we again approach it as a project. Maybe we can be a facilitator. It's come up many times that we provide a reasonable amount of value to the schools from the township through our cable department. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. And we know that our schools are populated with bright, computer-savvy kids. Maybe some kids from the schools. Maybe we could actually get and act as a facilitator and get some students from the schools to put on some of these things. And that way we facilitate it as a commission, and yet that could be between the schools and the seniors groups, between the schools and the senior center. I mean, that's something that they could do on their own.
Well, I think if we do anything, what we should maybe consider doing is, if there are indeed computer classes at the local libraries, then maybe we advertise or publish those on our channel through a PowerPoint presentation,
Also
or a
an excellent
message,
idea.
or something on our website saying, need to brush up your computer skills to use our resources, consider taking classes here. I personally don't feel that we are in the business of education. While we are a communications commission, it is not our job. I don't feel it is our job to handhold individuals where there are resources and other entities for adult education. There's Monroe Community College, there's Henry Ford, there's Wayne County Community College. There are lots of rec centers. There are adult ed classes offered everywhere. There are online tutorials. While I think that's a very interesting idea, this takes away from what we're here to do.
And what, in your opinion, what are we here to do?
We are here to oversee the cable channel as well as the website and any other communication mechanisms. I don't feel that we are in the business to teach people how to use computers, how to use their iPhones, how to use their iPads, how to use any of those other technologies out there. That is not what we're here to do.
I would agree with
I
that.
take a strong stance on that.
And
Very strong stance.
And that's why I thought maybe we could, maybe our role is to facilitate, because I agree with Lauren. I mean, we've had our new charter language for over a year now. And one of the aspects of our new charter language was to develop standards and guidelines, quality processes and guidelines. And we have yet to address that. I mean, we have our hands full with that. Now, again, if we could facilitate on your want, and I think it's a want for all of us.
It's for the community, not for
Well, agreed, but it's an excellent idea. By bringing two parties together and then divorcing ourselves from the process.
that works too.
If the schools wants to go ahead and get a grant and have students teach elder individuals or underprivileged individuals or individuals who don't have access to computers, I mean, there's a lot that goes into this. There is a ton.
I agree.
Who would teach? Who's carrying the insurance liability? What happens if something, not only that, but the technology that they would be utilizing in this instructional environment might not be the same computers that they're using in their own home.
Absolutely.
So there are a ton of things to think about. That's what I do, continuing education and professional development. So there are a zillion and one things to even consider before going down this road. And not only that, I mean, I love the idea of teaching the community because that's what I do in my professional life. But when you talk about what we do and what we're here to do, this isn't it. We can advertise it, we can promote it, we can partner and get the message out, we can cover it. And if there's money and Ted's available to go maybe do a segment, an informational segment on this new program that the schools are piloting, if this were to ever come to fruition, 100% on board for support with that. But I don't think that we need to start thinking about how we are, as a commission, going to teach the community how to use computers so that they can use Facebook, so they can interact with a non-utilized Facebook page.
Well,
Well, I still do think we should go back to the charter and review it, make sure we're in sync with why we meet.
Right.
Maybe one thing, because I'm not convinced, I don't want to offend anybody, but we're often campus consistent
Yeah,
instead of focusing on the charters that we're supposed to focus on.
I would agree.
it's not a bad idea. We can send out the guidelines.
I would agree with that.
We can send them out to review, and we can send out the budget with it. But I mean, we've had discussion after discussion for 2 years I've been here. How can we give to the community? How can we educate the community? In fact, I remember there was one discussion about doing a class on Robert's Rules. That did not fly. But it was discussed that we should educate the community. I don't see that, education, whether it be Robert's Rules or computers, still education in the community. And which is what we've been discussing for many, many months.
Well, I think informing the community of things that are going on within the island, within the governmental process of the township and the trustees versus just general education for the knowledge sake of how to use computers or underwater basket weaving or how to fly a plane. I mean,
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I remember it because it was my suggestion certainly to do that as far as
Robert's
getting involved with it, basically teaching people how to participate in their government,
Right.
so that they didn't feel disenfranchised, so the folks at home felt like they could come down with confidence, know what they're supposed to be able to do, what their rights are and what their limitations are. And if I remember that discussion correctly, and I think I do, what knocked that down before it even got to a motion was that somebody in Township Hall would take exception to it and would raise the roof on it. Well, I still think that's nonsensical, and frankly, I'm still in it.
Anyways, you just need to submit your proposal to Ted and he'll review it, right?
Well, no. Let's move on.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, just a comment. I'm thinking if we get our school liaison, have her come and explain a little further what she wanted to have us do, and tell her that we're thinking we should be more overseeing communications and not teaching, But what did she really have in mind? And hopefully we'll pin her down and she'll be part of the commission.
Great. Well, we will find, I will pursue that to find out if there will be a representative and if it will be the lady that came the last time.
Madam Chair?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
That we pull out the charter and review it at the next meeting and kind of chart our course for future meetings.
Second?
Oh, I certainly second that, yes.
Hi.
Hold on. Let me get this down. Future meetings or future,
Just to review
review the
At our next scheduled meeting?
review the charter and our next scheduled meeting in order to chart the proper course of action.
charter and proper course of action?
Or to determine what our goals and objectives are.
That's better. You like that?
They're listed as duties and responsibilities.
Okay. And the second is, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And is there any more discussion? If there is no discussion, we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passed. The motion is for the charter to review our future duties and responsibilities at the next meeting. I will supply that to everyone when I send you the budget. Yes. The liaison will do that. Excuse me. Oh, and yeah, it's also good. This is rough notes. It's very shorthand. You notice everything red. There's a lot of errors on it. Fine. The discussion now is regarding the possible presentation by Civic Plus Municipal Web Design Company. Pam, do you want to discuss it?
I got an email that I forwarded to Kathy from Brian Loftus, who said, I received a call from Civic Plus who would like to present a content management website proposal. I think this is long overdue if we're ever going to get a website of the highest quality. Please discuss this at your next commission meeting. Content management is the method all municipalities are adopting. Very user-friendly. We need to be there. And I forwarded to Kathy and she put it on the agenda. And I'll just share my thoughts on this. Apparently they wanted to come and make a proposal of handling our website. And I think we should hear what they want to say, but we're already into our budget year for this year, and maybe we should wait until next fiscal year and bring that up as something to look at for the next fiscal year. But that's just where I'm coming from. I can't see shifting from what we're doing now in midstream. But if people want to hear what they have to say ahead of time, we certainly could invite them in January to come and just hear what they could do for us that we aren't already doing.
Discussion?
I think it's a great idea.
And I think content management is certainly the way to go. I think it is, as far as platforms are concerned, there are a number of providers, Civic Plus, what is it, MuniNet. I mean, the schools use Foxbright. Gov, geez, I can't remember the one that's has Gov as part of the name. And actually the Michigan Townships Association has an affiliation with, I think, LIAA, at a fairly low-cost content management system that they've had a program in effect for several years. It offers so much functionality, such broad functionality in comparison to a traditional HTML structure that we're working with. It doesn't take away a job. It provides a platform, and that's one of the key considerations. Is you still need the platform to be managed. You still need for the content to be added. It's again, it's a platform or a mode of getting the information in far more easily with far less construction time. And it would be far more responsive to the community than what we currently have.
May I just, for clarification, could you explain what content management is? There are people listening to this that they might not even understand what you're talking about, so let's be a little helpful. What is content management?
Well, again, it's a platform. Most content management systems are based on SQL and PHP and Apache, and you've got various components as kind of substrates that all fit in.
That didn't help.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, but I mean, it's
very technical.
It is if you want to go into an explanation. Put it this way. You can have multiple authors, excellent security, you're not limited. This is something we delved into in the ill-fated website advisory.
We updated remotely.
Update remotely. You can have video. You can poll. You can and survey. You can have forums. I mean, it's the functionality is broad and limitless,
Right.
and that's where people are. I mean, that's where people are going.
And the ease of use on the end user is much greater too.
I'm sorry?
The ease of use for the end user, as far as Ted's concerned, or the person who would be doing the content management on the back end, it's so much easier.
Without question. There's consistency throughout. You have it's normally templated. So you're working with a base that's going to be consistent, or a presentation format that's going to be consistent throughout. You can take bits of information or articles, addresses, and rather than adding them to every page, you simply point to them. You point to them, and then you can have dozens of pages that incorporate that information. So it's far less taxing on whoever is responsible for it.
Well,
Does that seem reasonable to anybody?
that hard. My only question, since we've discussed it so often, what would this cost?
Right. And I'm sure they'll tell us.
Yeah.
I'm sure that after
It
explanation.
sounds wonderful, but
Well, then they would have to probably do a needs and wants
Yes.
analysis, and we'd have to do an assessment, and then there's probably different levels of packages that can be purchased. So I don't think it's a carte blanche, you have to take it or leave it. I think they could probably customize and design something for us as we need it, but I think it makes sense to bring somebody from the outside to tell us more about what they do, how they do it, so that we can convey.
And possibly multiple vendors?
no, I was going to say there
Absolutely.
would have to be multiple vendors, but
This is a
then
good
you're
start.
all willing to
Oh, yeah.
entertain them come in, correct?
Well,
Okay.
I'm so willing that I'd rather have a December meeting.
I
Early December.
got to tell you, I would
Second
too. I mean,
week.
this is terrible. This is so terribly overdue for consideration. And I think this actually was brought up the first, I think the second meeting
Well, I think we've
that I
got some
attended.
things that we've discussed, the budget, going back to our charter to decide what our goals and objectives are. And then if we can get this other outside organization, Civic Plus, to come in and to give us a quick tutorial and an overview of what they can do, I think it would be ideal. I know that I'm out of town until December 3rd or December 5th, so I'll be back that Monday, so I would be able to meet until, I think, sometime December 20th.
Would you like to move to revisit our earlier?
I would, actually, based on this. I think if we can do that second week of December, whether it's on a Wednesday or if there's another night that we could facilitate a meeting.
How is your situation?
The second Wednesday is open for me.
Since we had a vote, we will have to bring it up again. Does someone make a motion?
Make a motion to modify the next meeting date.
No, I'd certainly second. Did you have a specific date or?
Probably the second Wednesday. Sounds like that works with Cam's schedule, so. Yes, we'll keep consistency with?
6 or 7?
I would say 6, just because depending on where this vendor's coming from.
We don't know if he can make it.
Right.
Yeah, so,
Right, but
let's-
still, I think there's some other items that we can at least tackle.
Well, might I, again, there are multiple vendors, and we certainly want to hear, but if it's a matter of becoming familiar with the CMS system, if we couldn't get Civic Plus, I'm sure we could get a CMS platform provider to come in
Right.
on whatever meeting day we chose in December.
Yeah, it might behoove us to actually meet with Civic Plus first to see if they can come in,
Without
just because
question.
Brian Loftus gave us that
Without question.
direction, so.
So let's meet with them, but is this too small to put out an RFP? So, I mean, even an RFP, as far as making a few phone calls and getting a minimum of 3 bids on.
Oh, you have to do it for this too.
So, I mean, we're going to have Civic Plus, and that's a great idea, but I mean, the appropriate process after this is to then have a minimum of 3 bids, I'm assuming, is that correct?
Yeah.
That's if it's a go.
Well, I think we'd have to approve that we even want to move forward in this direction
Right.
in the next budget year, try to figure out where it fits, but then craft an RFP
Yes.
for
I
it.
believe that's the appropriate way to do
I
it.
would agree.
Assuming that we go forward. Did somebody second? I didn't hear a second.
Yeah, Craig said.
All right, so,
Okay. So what we will do then is contact Civic Plus to see if they're available.
You're going to call
I will.
Brian and have, because he's
Yes,
got...
I will talk to Brian. Or would you want to do it, Pam? Do you want to do it, or do you want me to? Okay.
Sure.
All right. I will contact our township supervisor and see if we can get the meeting with Civic Plus for the second Wednesday at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock because there's a meeting after this. We have to ask about the third Wednesday. I'll be doing that later. So this will be the second Wednesday of December. Okay, that's good. And then whether we do or don't, we can still have the budget information, and we can review our content for the our charter. Okay.
See if you can pin down the school days.
Yes, that's in my notes, and I definitely will do that. Lastly, is there anything else? We have another new business.
did you have anything on? Bob?
I know earlier we were talking about whether or not we were going to vote as to the monthly project report from TED, and Pam would be approaching TED to make that happen. So it would actually be ideal to have one for this other meeting coming up too.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that going forward, a monthly project report is presented to the commission by TED. And Pam will, that doesn't necessarily have to be part of the motion, but Pam will have that conversation.
Again, in advance with the forthcoming meeting?
Do we have a second first one?
Second.
Okay, second. Discussion. My discussion would be, before I make a motion on something, I think there should be Pam having a talk with him and seeing how that would work first. If he's, conducive to doing it, is it easy for him? Will he be available? There's a lot of things before we make the motion. I would think that we can always make the motion next time. To just kind of push it on right away might be a little cart before the horse. Do you feel that way?
I feel like it's
No, I think it's the opposite. I think we make a motion.
We drive it.
Feedback.
Right,
Yeah,
I agree.
I think it's an accountability
And-
measure.
And he's got a month to
Right.
comply.
If he, again, I don't know his vacation schedule, I don't know any of that, but we'll have a vote now. All those in favor?
Aye.
I
Opposed? And passes. Okay, with that. Any other discussions in business?
Yes, Madam Chair, I did speak to Linda Solano.
You did?
I did, today.
Oh, okay.
And I would still move that we make that we recommend to the Board of Trustees that Linda Solano be added as the school liaison to this commission. I believe that Linda would like to participate, understanding that there are some constraints on her time. Also, our charter language specifically calls out, now since the change, since it's the verbiage, since it was reconstructed, that this commission is supposed to be comprised of 7 township residents. Linda is not a township resident. However, she was the choice and recommendation, I think, of Bill Ice initially. It was his preference as superintendent of the schools. And we also have precedent, although the language has changed, that Jennifer Park served well on this commission for a number of years when she did not live on the island, before she lived on the island. So I think the board would have to determine whether or not they would want to make this decision and approve Linda while also setting a precedent that could impact in the future. But I believe that we should go forward and make that recommendation. She's very well qualified. She's very engaged. She has a very good background. She would bring the perspective of the schools, and we do not have that right now.
Is there some reason she can't fill out our form and we can review it? Because that's where I'm at. I'm kind of perplexed because I have been making phone calls and I haven't received any input from her at all, and or from Superintendent Ice. And I did mention that there is a procedure, and the procedure is to fill out our form, and then we can review it and then discuss and perhaps have her come in and talk to us some more, since most people were not here last time, and then pass on our vote to the trustees. I wouldn't know why she wouldn't be willing to fill it out.
I apologize, and it's very plausible that she would be willing to fill it out. Keep in mind the way I approach is you're probably approach in a much better mannered fashion than I do. My daughter happens to be at the school.
I understand you probably said, hey.
So I kind of walk into the office and say, can I have a couple of moments of your time? And she probably doesn't want to give me any, she'd probably much far prefer to give you the time than me, but, well, I got to talk to the guy for crying out loud. He's here, and I got this kid in my school. And, is that true? Is that what you do, Linda, in case?
Moving right along,
Do you know enough about her background? You can share it with us now.
Well, of course, Linda comes from the Wyandotte School systems, and she was the school improvement leader at, I think, Wilson, I believe it's Wilson Middle School. Also was actively involved, actually, in the city of Trenton. I think was involved with their Parks and Recreation department, and certainly computer savvy. I mean, she's familiar with the Foxbright system, with the content management system that the schools use. She's conversant with that. So, I mean, I think she brings that practical knowledge and skill sets that she's acquired, and maybe a broader perspective, because she brings perspective from outside of Crucial. And that's got to be of value to the process.
I'm more than happy with their choice, but I still feel that if we were to do this and not go through the proper procedure, shame on us. We should have her fill out a form. We ask that for anybody else, and it's not a big deal. She can do it online and just submit it to us. I just think that would be incorrect procedure if we didn't. We ask everyone else to fill it out, and everyone is just should be looked at with the same encouragement.
I don't think anybody's saying that we shouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that anybody's actually had that conversation with her, so she knows what the process is.
I did have the conversation with Mr. Ice's executive assistant.
Okay, so
And
whether it got down to
they are.
there.
She said she was calling her immediately, and that was 2 days ago.
Okay, do you have her email address?
Yes, I do, and I sent her the notification of the meeting tonight. Again,
Did we send in forms?
Well, could
I told them where they could get them, as we would do for everybody. There's, I feel that we should treat everybody the same. And if we did this, I don't feel we would be treating everyone the same.
Madam Chair, if I could, is it the filling out of the form Is that the concern?
My concern is that we treat everyone who's to be considered the same fashion.
Would that satisfy that, though? That's what I'm asking.
That's for me, absolutely.
Okay, but then I would modify, if I may, I'd like to, geez, I don't know whether I can do this because we're already into, yes, I can. I'd like to offer an amendment to the motion, that we make the recommendation pending the completion of the form by Ms. Solano. And if we can get that form filled out by the end of this week, could that become, when do you have to have it, Pam, to make an agenda item for the Township Board meeting?
The Thursday before the meeting.
The Thursday before the meeting, okay, which would be tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yeah, we meet on the 14th.
So would it satisfy then, I guess, that would be my modified motion, that we move ahead with a recommendation pending completion of that form.
I guess I just want to treat everyone the same. And same with you. Fill out 1 month either way. She can participate. I engaged her to participate tonight, and I heard no.
I did too.
And I heard no response.
Well, nice. In all fairness, I don't think anything less than a couple of weeks is sufficient notice. So maybe she just had other plans.
Yeah.
Even to fill out that form, you have to give people time to do that. So
We made that aware of it last meeting.
last week's one. So
And-
it's been over a month.
It's been over a month, and it was reiterated.
Okay.
And
For
just,
some reason, I had 2 or 3 days.
yeah, again, we did not have a meeting that, because we did not have a forum, but we could discuss. And I just feel that everyone should be treated the same when it comes to an appointment on this commission. We should get the document, we should review it, we should go through the process. Because as soon as you violate that, then the next time it'll be easier.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think my motion still stays the same, that it would be pending completion of the paperwork, without the push to get it done this week, which was really not part of the motion anyway. So it's a motion to approve and make the recommendation to the board pending the completion of the paperwork and submission to this commission. Is that correct?
Let's try that again. It's a long thing. So you want to, your motion is,
I'd move that we recommend the appointment of Linda Solano to the Communication Commission as the school liaison pending her completion and submission of the required document. Good?
okay. And some more discussion?
I think we need a second now on that amendment.
Any more discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passed.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I don't mean to be a stickler, but I just feel that everybody should be treated the same way.
It's your role.
It's
You're
not-
supposed to be.
Now, other business. The GITV survey. We've been talking about this and talking about this. Where do you want to go?
Well, I think, it's one of those things that, yes, we've been talking about it a long time. I submitted a survey that was quantitative in nature, Likert scale, very generic. I haven't heard anything from anybody about it other than, yeah, it looks good. There was discussion about timing, with a few mentioning that Island Fest seemed like it was an ideal time. I know that there was some concerns as far as timing and possibly going out to ancillary events or standing outside a Kroger or whatever it may be to try and capture that. I personally feel strongly that when you're polling individuals and you want to get the most accurate and honest responses, doing it in a live scenario, you're not going to get that. So my recommendation is that we do it through SurveyMonkey. Another thing is going back to Bob's, idea of revisiting what our goals and objectives are. This kind of ties into that because that will determine some of the outcomes of those goals and objectives may very well determine the outcome or determine the direction that the survey goes. So if we're going to look at more of what do individuals or the public expect from the Communications Commission, or what is it that they want to see from the resources that are available to them, meaning the cable station and the website. So I would ask that we table this. I don't know if we need to have more discussion about it now. We can certainly do that. I think a survey definitely needs to be done, but again, it goes back to the whole goals and objectives. So
I agree with Lauren. I think we have to spend more time on that before we do this. And then to piggyback on that, I know we can't afford it, but if we were to hire a professional firm, how would they approach this? We all know, that's how most have done it, right? How would they approach it?
doing a survey?
How would they really gather the information? Surveys one,
Right,
right? What else would they do?
Well, first of all, they take a look at all of our resources. They would take a look at, web hits, where that information is coming from, who's visiting our site, unique visitors, whether it's coming from the same individuals or entities, how much are coming from outside of Groseal versus how much is coming from inside of Groseal and residents. They would take a look at what other sources there are out there, what the web is actually communicating, how Facebook and other modes of communication that we're utilizing is being used. They would probably put together a nice, tidy little report and the bow and, give us the brutal facts. And then we would have to determine what we're going to do with those facts.
I think they would also have live discussion groups too, and I don't know if that's something.
Focus groups?
Yeah, focus groups. Which is one of their primary tools. Everything you said is absolutely true, and then there's another piece of that, which is live discussion from residents.
Right.
And I don't know if that's something we could pull off logistically or economically. It would be nice to have a group of people here and have our survey collectors do some live feedback and even some brainstorming amongst the community.
Right.
I don't know if it's ever been tried to see if possible logistically, but if we want to know the truth, we have to get down and start talking at the grassroots level and find out what people are really thinking, what they really want.
Yeah, usually you wouldn't put them in an environment, in a home environment where power and politics play. You remove them from anything that's associated with the island or with whoever's involved in the commissions and things like that, so that they can answer honestly and openly.
You have someone who's not associated, a neutral person.
Right. Conducting it, yeah. And then you usually get your best responses from paid individuals. If you pay people to come, there's not going to be a high participation rate if there isn't anything, because a focus group takes 2 to 3 hours. And then there's a whole digest that comes after the fact. So I think on average right now, it's about $80 to $125 per person that you pay for a focus group. And you want to have at least 8 to 10 individuals. And sometimes you want to segment those individuals into categories so that you have maybe a youth or a teen, and then you have an adult parent population, and then you have a senior population. So you have to look at getting individuals for each one of those segments.
So it'd be a fairly expensive process.
Yeah, it can be very expensive. But it gives you good information. But then also, it's a matter of what you do with that information. I can't tell you how many times I've seen focus groups and organizations come in and give you the brutal facts, but it gets put into a nice little portfolio, and then it's reviewed, and it goes onto a file cabinet that is never, ever dealt with. And the fact that we don't have a lot of money to change if those changes are necessary. So it's like we're in this vicious cycle or vicious circle sort of thing where it's like, okay, well, we know we have to change, but we don't have any money to change.
And we don't even have any money to find out how to change.
So,
Yeah.
remember that too.
Right.
What I was thinking is maybe we should put our thinking caps on, just say what would the pros do and what can we do in a similar manner to
Right.
gather that information. And maybe somebody will come up with something, survey monkey really works, and
It's
I'm
great.
not sure how we can utilize it, but maybe there's a way we can utilize that.
There is, and they will actually allow individuals like ourselves, so if we wanted to sign up and send out to 100 individuals, anything, I think 100 and less is free. And you can do it up to like 5 or 10 times. There's also, you can sign up for an annual subscription. I know that municipalities and school districts get a reduced rate depending on how many you're planning on sending out. You know, I don't necessarily see us sending out mass quantities of surveys. I think, you know, if we're going to do it, we need to do it right. You know, and then if we're going to plan this, then we pull out all the PR beforehand so that we can say, we're doing this. This is the time frame it's going to be done. We need your support. Please go to www.blah, fill out the anonymous survey. The beauty of something like this is that it gives you instant feedback, instant results. So once you close that survey, pardon?
They tally the results.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
May I say, would somebody like to volunteer to look into the Survey Monkey and bring that to the next meeting?
I'm not sure what we need to bring into
So
it
we know how
because
it works. We use it.
I know how it works.
We have to
I know the
figure out
cost.
how
It's
we
free
utilize
if you're
it.
under 100 emails.
Could I make, just interject for a moment? I think it's, those that are familiar with it, just because it's got to be a collective decision for all of us, it's important we're all on the same
Oh, yeah.
page. And certainly Pam and Kathy, if they're not familiar with it, maybe we could help with
Yeah,
bringing
you know what?
them
I have
up to speed on this.
survey that I did for my grad program. I can bring that in.
Would
As
that
far as
help?
the look and the feel, if we need to go through, I can do a tutorial, a basic demonstration. I don't know if we can get a screen going somewhere where you guys can look at it and whatnot. I imagine these monitors work.
I'm sure this all works. This tonight we're at a disadvantage. Okay, bring in your finished survey for next month.
And I'd like to just add that I think your survey sample is right on the beam. So we've already got the survey. It tells us what we need to know. We just need to find a way to reach out and get a response from people.
Yeah, well, again, it ties back to the December meeting. If we're going to go over our goals and objectives, that may very well change based on, are we looking at more of a programming focus for our cable channel on our website and modifications made to that, or are we looking at what does the community expect from us as a commission?
Okay, we've got quite an agenda going now.
Yeah, it's going to be an all-nighter.
I would think about that. I would think about that. Is there any other business?
Actually, I have two more real quick ones. And
Okay. Other business?
well, two things. And we're talking about broader scope issues that certainly are need to be on the table. These are more maintenance issues, I think. But two things. Number one, we disseminate a lot of our information on GITV through a PowerPoint presentation that will run continuously, and you get different slides, and they run for about 15 seconds. And I think Ted's done a much better job with them over the last 4, 5, 6 months, because they were running very old. One of the things I noticed, though, in looking at them, and I would ask each member of this commission to watch one of these cycles all of the way through, is that we've got great inconsistency in the size of font that we use, the color schemes that we use, and the typography that we use. You're going from very readable font on some of these slides to nearly unreadable font on other ones. And especially where you've got a large amount of information to ingest. If you happen to be looking at it saying, okay, I've got to get through all of this in 15 seconds, and oh my gosh, I only got through half, so I'm going to have to wait another 15 minutes to cycle through again until I can get to the other half. Wait, it needs to be addressed. One of the slides that's probably maybe the biggest offender happens to be the slide that has all of the commission openings on it. And I would ask each one of you, just run through, look through the cycle and see for yourselves and ask yourself, can we improve this? Should we look into, again, standardizing, identifying readable fonts, and setting those as maybe a number of them or a range of those as standards for GITV. Well, that's on GITV. If you turn on Channel 10 or whatever your channel is and just watch them run through, and I think you'll see it.
And 12 for Comcast. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, we submit the flyers and Ted puts them up. He doesn't redo them. I don't know if that's in his purview to readdress every slide that comes in. I don't think it is. Perhaps we have to have standards for the submission.
There you go.
But the thought of him redoing everything would be a lot of work.
Oh, well, I think we have to start somewhere again. And maybe I'm the only one that would feel this way, but I would ask, that's why I'm asking you to look at it, and you might look at it and say, Craig, you must be drinking when you watch this stuff because it all looks fine to us.
Some are very hard to read. And I think when people are doing information, sometimes they want to put everything that the kids think, and they don't know about white space, and they don't know how to prepare things. And sometimes it doesn't look as good as you think it's going to. But again, we would have to come up with some
standards.
Structure.
Standards. That's fine. And disseminate those to all interested parties that want to make submission.
Put it up on our website. This is what we need. This is the size.
We can come up with.
Great idea.
Was it a Word document they submitted?
No, it's a JPEG usually.
Oh, they could do that. There's a variety of formats. I mean, that they could submit. Yeah.
PDFs, whatever. Okay, so that's something to consider.
The second thing is, and I know you said Ted's on vacation.
Yes, he is. He's only in one day this week, to my knowledge.
I don't know whether I mentioned it earlier, but I did see him go out and actually he and a guy named Phil Henry did the voiceover and broadcast a girls volleyball game. First time I've ever seen a girls volleyball game, and I'm sure the girls were thrilled if they got to see it. Here's the disconnect. The disconnect is that it was never on our schedule. It was never on the website. So how would anybody possibly know to watch? And it was terrific. And there again, and maybe this is for the standards and setting discussion, but there should be consistency across all of our platforms with the information that we're getting out. Whatever appears on the website should also be on GIITV, so on and so forth, on the Facebook page. And we should be real time. If we're going to expend the money on recording and then broadcasting a volleyball game, well, gosh, let's find a way to get the word out to the community so that they can enjoy it. How we do that is maybe a subject for maybe the next discussion. Does that seem sensible to everybody?
Yeah, I mean, realistically,
you don't know if we. I'm sorry.
I was going to say realistically that all the principals of the schools have email addresses. that email could be shut off saying, hey, we recorded this, it's going to air on XYZ dates. Please put this into your school newsletters, post it
Absolutely.
online, as well as us doing our job as a commission and having it listed appropriately on our website as well as the channel.
Well, the real time, that might be a problem with conflict. And you
I'm
don't
sorry?
know, and again, we don't know if it was planned or it was somebody said, hey, would you mind doing this? You don't know how it came about, is my point. You don't know if this has been planned